and welcome again to the Executive Room podcast, where we delve deep into the minds of remarkable executives who have shaped the business world with their ideas and actions. I'm your host, Kimberly Afonso, CEO and founder of the KA Consulting Group, and today it's an honor to have Brett Howroyd join us. Brett is the president of ActOne Group, a multi-billion-dollar award-winning global enterprise specializing in workforce management and technology solutions. Since joining in 2007, Brett has worked across North America and alongside global leaders, shaping strategies that balance innovation with the core values of a family-founded business. From championing career readiness programs to advancing corporate sustainability, he's committed to helping organizations meet complex workforce challenges with vision and integrity. So let's get started. So Brett, you've risen through the ranks at ActOne Group, which, I'm really excited to talk about how it also is a family company with deep family roots. And you've helped grow it into one of the global leaders in workforce development solutions and technology. So how has it been being in a family-led business, and what changes have you seen in how it operates and serves its clients since you started in 2007?
Well, first, Kimberly, thank you for having me on as a guest. It's great to join you on this podcast. Family-run business. Well, let's talk about the pros and cons, and I'll keep it very real for your listeners, for your audience. So the pros would be, I feel like we've driven higher loyalty and from our staff than maybe just your average non-family-led business. Because I think they start to feel the family spirit that we talk about all the time, and that we actually live, and the way we behave, and folks tend to appreciate it because they have families and they start to feel like this is their business too, and that's great, right? That sense of ownership, and the genuineness becomes a competitive advantage in my opinion because we keep good talent that way. The cons. Maybe we didn't grow as fast as if we were publicly traded with more access to just, capital on demand when things happen. And maybe we would have squeezed out more profits over the years if we were not family owned and operated, because we would have made harder decisions. Our industry is quite cyclical. So on down years, maybe we hold on to things and people longer than a non-family owned business would. And over the years, right, there's a cost to that, but that's just the decisions we made. So maybe the business would have made more profits over the years if it wasn't family owned. But the counter to that again would be maybe we wouldn't have been as innovative, because if we weren't what you call owner or founder, owned and operated, maybe we wouldn't be willing to, put our personal resources into big ideas and into, sometimes it's not our ideas, it's the ideas of our executives, and we're willing to support it even at a loss. That if it was a neutral executive with a bonus in mind, maybe they wouldn't be willing to make some of those investments, right? They would just stick to what they know and try to, milk the cash cow. So yeah, I hope that answers your question, but there's definite pros and cons if I'm being honest. But to me, the pros outweigh the cons.
I really love what you said about the culture that has been shaped by being a founder-led business. And I personally love founder-led businesses and family businesses because of that. I think there's always a great work ethic that you see across the company. And, everybody has a really good reason for the business to keep running, not just, next year, but 10, 15, 20 years down the line. So I think there's always that, which is amazing. So, going a little bit further into that, how does your culture shape decision making, leadership, and day-to-day operations, thinking about it, from that family-led business perspective?
Culture is everything. It is our competitive advantage, right? Is the culture. We're not a small business, but we're also not huge. So, we don't have all the resources that a huge company might have, even if we have the footprint and a lot of the abilities they have. So culture becomes how we compete. And the philosophy of my parents, which is how we got started when we weren't a decent size, when we were tiny, um, was to pour customer service onto the job seeker. In our industry, a lot of people come to us seeking opportunities, and we have paying customers who are the businesses, the clients. But we made a decision to kind of do the opposite of the competition, which they poured all their attention on the client and didn't spend as much time with the actual job seeker, the talent. And we decided let's really love on the talent. And I think that has, in order to do that, that has to be a cultural value, because the talent is not the paying customer in the scenario, right? So it's not as natural. It takes a bit of a rewiring. So culturally, all our decisions started to cascade from this decision of how we were going to compete differently. And so without ingraining that into the culture, it's hard to get, as we grow and grow and grow, it's harder to keep that mindset across all nodes of the business unless it becomes a cultural value.
That's amazing. And that's a really great point in your industry that I'm sure a lot of our listeners did not know about, thinking of who did you want to put the attention on and putting it on the job seekers. So that's really a great, great differentiator. And also for the listeners, Brett is very humble. You have a very, your company is quite large, multiple billions, and you've grown it, your family have grown it to, winning many awards and being really recognized in the industry and your community. So I just wanted to say that for the listeners too, so that no one thinks that, we're talking about a small 20-person company. We're very, very far from that. So that was just a side note. But I'd love, Brett, when we connected before, we're connecting about your experience working with different countries and, looking at different values and attitudes, especially towards family businesses. I know we're talking about that topic a lot today, but it's one that I personally find so fascinating because, living in different countries myself, I've seen different attitudes towards family businesses where, for example, in Italy, Spain, Portugal, Southern Europe, where I've lived, people love family businesses because they think they're more stable. They think that, the career path will be stable for them, and they really love to work with family businesses. So what are some of the, they could either be funny or interesting, or what are some of the differences that have stood out to you internationally, when you talk to other people and hear their views on family businesses?
Yeah. So I'm not an academic who could write a paper on it, but I've worked in South Korea, I've worked in India, I've worked in Poland, I've worked in the UK and Ireland, where I wasn't there for vacation, right? I was there to do business, I was there to hire staff, I was there to engage with customers. Um, Even Mexico, right? I've been there many times. So, what I would say from my experience is that some countries see the family owned element as a positive. Um, you know, I think in Europe, for example, our employees have this idea, which I think is based in reality, that we're more caring, maybe than a non-family owned business, and that they have more opportunity to grow with us because, especially because we're based in the US and we're telling them like sky's the limit in Europe. We don't have hundreds of years of organizational structure for you to, just be a number 187 employee 2000 or something like that. So, but however, in Asia, I have found that employees maybe find a bigger brand more prestigious, right? So I'm going to stereotype a little bit. So if your listeners disagree, please forgive me. But, I found maybe in South Korea, a dream, the parent's dream is that their child goes to the best university and then works for Samsung. And Act One is not Samsung in that scenario. So, in that sense, we might have to compete harder for that same talent because the bigger brands maybe hold just a bit more. But let's go back to Europe. Maybe Brett Howroyd physically coming to shake your hand and meet you goes a lot further than, again, being employee 2,800, whatever, for British Petroleum. you get my point. Now, pay is important. People value what I'm talking about, but you still have to be in line and pay. Humans are humans. But let's talk from a B2B perspective because I'm talking about hiring mostly. Um, from a business to business perspective, I found that um, countries that have really established institutions where people feel like if I do business with you and we have an issue or you try to not pay me, I have a good avenue, a credible avenue to come after you. I think we're used to that in the US, but in countries that don't have that established, they really maybe the better brand appeals to them, or they have to really know you and know your family in order to feel comfortable to start making transactions. And I've seen that also, that you want to physically show up and let them know who you are and experience you so they can trust you if that country again doesn't have the institutions. Like here in the US, we buy from anyone because it's just about getting your revenue, and then after the fact, how did my credit department miss that? But it's because we're so used to having good foundations here.
That's such a great point, and I completely agree. That's something I've definitely noticed myself and trust. I think that's why I've also noticed doing business in the US, it's easier to do business quicker because, you don't need to have that trust because of the institutions versus doing business, in my experience in Southern Europe, there's always a lot more touch points, getting to know the person a lot more because of weaker institutions. There needs to be that foundation of trust built. So I completely agree, and I think that's so helpful to our listeners. And as you know, Brett, most of our listeners are fellow executives, CEOs, founders, C-suite executives. Do you have any advice for them if they were looking to start putting their business abroad? Is there anything you've learned after so many countries of doing business in that could be a good first step or a good thing for them to keep in mind?
Yeah, our global expansion involved because we're paying a lot of people in different countries. So we would do a lot of work in the back office at corporate to set up bank accounts and companies and having local relationships and legal relationships. It was a lot of work and it would be country by country at times. I know the EU helps that out a bit, but there's still, Netherlands versus Germany versus, there's still even little nuances and things. So I would just say be prepared to put in some of that work. AI has helped. I think you can, think we were doing this pre AI, right? Pre chat GPT, pre every company sort of embedding AI into some of their service offerings. So maybe now it could be quicker, better, faster in terms of expansion. And I think it does help. I don't have any recommendations on the show, but there are companies that probably you can leverage to help you to hire someone quickly on their payroll versus your own, so that you could at least get the talent you want to start, whether it's selling or representing you in country. So there are services you can use to help you set up or to help you just get a worker real quick who's going to represent you, even though they're on the payroll of a local business. So I hope that's helpful to your expanding or to your listeners who want to expand, especially into Europe. That's the tactics we used.
Very, very helpful and a great point. I think that's a great way for people to get their foot in the door too. Instead of thinking they need to go, all in, they could start with that type of setup. I've seen a lot of those companies myself.
Yeah.
And as you mentioned, AI adoption, I'd love to talk about that a little bit more. We've seen, automation, AI, really all of these innovations change employee expectations and reshape the labor market worldwide. So, in your opinion, what have been some of the most profound shifts and in the global talent landscape? And how have they challenged the traditional staffing models?
Well, believe it or not, I have not seen AI adoption shift the talent landscape yet. I believe it will. I don't think I've seen a dramatic shift in the talent landscape, the way you put it. AI will replace work, but I haven't seen it replace a worker. if that makes sense. So when computers came out, I think there were probably plenty of accountants who just refused to adopt it, and because they were already very comfortable in their way. But how many of those survive today? Like none, but there are still plenty of accountants. And maybe there was 5 years where those accountants were able to continue to service customers who didn't demand them to get digitalized and get on. We might see something similar here. But then you had Excel and ERP and all these things come out, so you just get further and further behind if you don't adopt it. Point is, the talent that's willing to learn the AI tools, in my opinion, the jobs are going to be there. But the nature of how the job gets done and how the employer demands you to do the job, that's what's changing. So shift in the talent landscape. I haven't seen it yet. There will be a shift. There will be disruption, but I think it's disruption on the talent that is not going to embrace some of these tools and be very forward thinking with their employers, because I think a lot of employers want to capitalize on the productivity gains of AI, and I can talk about agentic AI if we want to, because I could see a scenario where larger companies use agentic AI to not hire as much, or if there's departments like large call centers or things with lots of staff doing repetitive, similar work, maybe a large company has the ability to hire less. But the small and mid-sized customers we have, I see AI and agentic AI just being more of a top line growth play than shrinking cost play, because they need the talent, they desperately need the humans, and the AI just makes their humans better assets to those organizations.
Very well said, and love hearing your perspective on that. It's something I've also heard from other leaders of, it's not going to replace the worker, it will replace the workers who don't know how to use AI. So really great to hear, your perspective and what you're seeing. And, thinking about growth, we'd love to hear a little bit about how do you envision Act One changing over the next 5 to 10 years, and how do you envision overall, your industry changing in the next 5 to 10 years?
Yeah, great question. And I think about this all the time. I used to hear, business leaders talk about 5 year plans, and now I think we're all just talking about 1 year, 2 year plans because things change so quickly. But it ties well into the AI and agentic AI conversation we had. I think that our company, Act One, is is uniquely positioned to really help keep the HI with the AI. Do you know what I mean when I say HI? The human
Human,
intelligence.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, not Hawaii, even though that's fabulous. But I think helping companies grow bigger, faster, stronger is what's the demand on our industry going to be. So what we're doing is we're shifting from just a workforce solutions company to a work solutions company. How do we help you get things done in a smarter way? And again, I think the humans, this is going to sound contradictory, but I haven't seen process automation without humans involved in it. And I know process automation makes you think no human touched it, but we do, right? Like the term in the industry is human in the loop. So I think an agency like ours, or we're really staffing and workforce solutions, I think where we play a role in that is saying we'll help you optimize process, we'll help you leverage technology. We offer what's called an orchestration technology that helps you onboard and offboard agents like you onboard and offboard humans. But the upskilling is part of that because the humans are going to be in the loop in perpetuity, and we can help you identify talent if the existing talent in the organization isn't a good fit, or if you need newly skilled positions, new positions are created, right? So yes, in the next 5 years, I think it's an exciting time where staffing agencies and especially our company can help, businesses of all sizes, not just the businesses with huge IT budgets, participate in what I'm calling the golden era of process automation.
Oh, I love that. And I love that term. Is that one that you came up with, Brett, the golden era, or is that something in the industry? Could you tell us a little bit more about that?
I came up with that maybe 2 days ago. So
Oh,
I'm
great. It's
glad you
brand
like
new.
it. But no, we've been talking a lot about this, and the position we're going to play in it, but I guess my wife and I watch a lot of The Gilded Age, and there's themes of, like the industry growing and changing America. And I'm thinking, okay, like I'm inspired by that. Why don't we have a golden age of process automation with humans involved in the right, thoughtful way? And being that our slogan is hiring made human, I think that's why we have a good place in this versus a company that really doesn't understand that, right?
That's great. And that made me think of you must be really good with naming things. So, we're going to talk a little bit about your podcast. So, you're the host of the Apple One Show. And my first question is, did you come up with that name? Because I see you're very good with, it seems you have a really good branding or marketing brain with, Golden Age and things like that. So I'd love to hear about the meaning behind why you came up with Apple One Show. And then your podcast is all about career insights, hiring strategies. I really recommend it to our listeners, for anyone who's hiring, for HR professionals. I think, also for people looking for jobs. I think there's so many people who could listen to your podcast and gain a lot of value. So tell us a little bit about your show, the naming, and also what impact has your show had on your company's visibility and building relationships, which, we know a lot of podcasts serve to build relationships.
Yeah. My mom came up with the name. So under the ActOne Group, our main staffing brand is called Apple One, and so that's where the name the Apple One Show came. And we've been Apple One since 1964. So been Apple One a long time. Act One started in the 70s, which my mom started. My dad started Apple One, and they actually merged at some point because they were already in love and married, and I was born and my sister was born. But the Apple One show came from that legacy. Um, the value it's brought, it's hard to tell if I'm going to keep it real with you, Kimberly. I'm having fun. I'm meeting great people, like yourself, and and the goal, though you're right, was to drive more, people interested in changing or upgrading their careers towards the brand. That is the goal of the podcast. But maybe I could get some advice from you because I don't know how to track the results very well. I know we get listeners, and that's exciting. But whether or not it lands exactly to the call to action you would want, I haven't been able to track that. So,
And I'm glad you shared that. So honestly, Brett, I think that's really, really helpful to our listeners because, it's not always easy to track. And podcasts, unlike, it's something that I always bring up as well when thinking about executive visibility. It's like podcasts are where people go deep, and other content is where they see you quickly. So, it's like apples to oranges. They're very different. It's very different to compare a podcast to like having a LinkedIn account or having a Forbes account or something like that. So that thank you for sharing that with our listeners. And I think one of the learnings that people can have from that is to think about what do they want to track before potentially starting their podcast as well, because some people like to do podcasts for visibility, some like to do it for a specific reason. So always having, what's the goal in mind, I think that could be a really good learning for people listening.
agreed.
And I'd love, so, you
I
are
need a
really,
water break.
oh yeah, please go ahead.
Sorry.
And, oh, you're
Okay.
good. Okay, great. We're back. And I'd love to talk about a little bit more your executive visibility, and not just yours, but of course, your whole families. You have a great, really active family, and have you all just naturally been really public and really good at having a public presence, or was it something that took time to build? And do you have any insights? We always talk a lot about executive visibility on this podcast. Do you have any insights from yourself, your family, and what other leaders could learn from that, or, how you got started?
When it comes to visibility, it comes very natural to my mom. I don't know if you know much about JBH, as I call her mom, but as you know about JBH, but she woke up like this, right? Like that is who she is, and she's genuine, and it works because that's her energy, that's her vibe. It did not come natural to me, if I'm being honest, right? But the reason I feel comfortable at times, doing a podcast or speaking in front of a group of people, whether they're my employees or not, um, is because I see it as, if this action can help my family, right? It's my employees, but my family, they're like family to me. If it can help them be more successful at that recruiting or at that client services or at that sales, whatever it is they're doing for the ActOne Group, if me doing this can help them earn more, then it's almost selfish to stay in my shell. So I get out of my shell, and I mean, I'm still maybe more of a slightly natural introvert than extrovert. That maybe never changes, but you just get used to getting out of your comfort zone, and then it no longer becomes as nerve-wracking to give a speech in front of an auditorium or whatever it might be. And if you remember why you're doing it, it helps, right? I'm doing this because of these people I care a lot about, and I want to be able to say that I did everything I could to make them successful because what they're doing is making our company successful. So that framework helped me get out of my, sweaty palm comfort zone, because that's what I was coming out of high school. I was not into this. And my parents were so very A-type personalities, and they enjoyed it. So I've had to learn that I wasn't going to naturally enjoy it, but I learned how to make it part of what I do because I care so much. Hope that answer made sense. But
I love that. I think there always needs to be a strong why for anyone to be visible. And it sounds like you found your why. And what I love about you sharing that, Brett, is that, we have a lot of naturally visible, naturally love to be in the spotlight CEOs on this show. And I love that you share that perspective because that's not every single leader in a company. I've also have worked with and seen so many leaders who naturally have so many amazing strengths. That's maybe not the top one, and that's totally fine. And I love how you shared you found your why because I think that's the hardest part sometimes is why to do something because once you have the why, it becomes a lot easier to get behind it. So really, really great insight. And, to wrap up, would love to hear what are you excited about these days? Is it something you're building? Is it something personal? What keeps you motivated? I love that you referred to your team as family. I can see the passion in the work. Yeah, tell us a little bit more about that.
I'll harken back to the golden age of process automation, right? It's just begun, and I get up in the morning really excited for that because I think our company is going to play a role in it, and striking that balance between humans and artificial intelligence. So I think that that's really my driving. Well, I have a lot of driving forces, like my 1-year-old daughter, who, when I'm done with work, I used to want to just watch sports, and now I just want to be with her, right, and whatever she's up to. So that's kind of cool. But yeah, back to the business side of things, it is an exciting time, and I think the companies that approach it with excitement, with energy, are going to actually find themselves way more successful. And I'm thinking about that business that I think I mentioned this earlier doesn't have the huge IT budget and lots of data scientists on the payroll. I think that working with them, we could help them realize the productivity of the best technology ever made, in a way that maybe in the past they'd always be, at a competitive disadvantage. That's what motivates me.
I love that. A mix of personal, a mix of amazing things with the golden age. Your team's lucky to have you, Brett. Really, really great leadership. So thank you for sharing today. Thanks for joining us. And until next time.
All right. Thank you, Kimberly.